If you've typed Deel versus Papaya Global into a search bar, you're probably past the theory stage already. You know what an employer of record does. You've got to hire, or a few of them, in a country where you don't have a legal entity, and you need a platform that can put them on payroll legally without you spending 6 months and 50 grand setting up your own subsidiary there. Quick disclosure before I get into it. This video has an affiliate link in the description, and I may earn a commission if you sign up through it, at no extra cost to you. That said, everything I'm about to walk you through is based on actual research into both platforms, current pricing pages, and a stack of verified user reviews. I'm not just reading you a sales pitch, so here's the real answer up front, because I don't want to waste your time. Deel and Papaya Global both solve the same basic problem, but they were built for two pretty different buyers. Deel was built for speed. Get a hire onboarded fast, keep the interface simple, let a founder or an ops person run it without a payroll background. Papaya was built the opposite way. It was built for finance teams who need their global payroll to behave like one connected system instead of 15 messy spreadsheets across 15 countries. Picking the wrong one isn't going to sink your company, but it does mean either paying for depth you'll never use or hitting a ceiling way sooner than you expected. Let's start with pricing, because that's usually the first thing people care about. Deel is about as transparent as this industry gets. Employer of record runs around $599 per employee per month on the standard tier, with an enterprise tier closer to $899. Contractor management is $49 per contractor per month, and if misclassification risk is a real concern for you, their contractor of record product bumps that up to $325. If you already have legal entities set up in the countries you're hiring in, Deel's global payroll product is $29 per employee per month, which is genuinely one of the more aggressive prices in this whole category. There's also a free HRIS tier for up to 200 employees, which is a nice low-pressure way to get a feel for the platform before you spend a dollar. Papaya's pricing is murkier, and that's not a knock, it's just how they operate. The EOR number floats depending on where you look, but it generally lands somewhere between $599 and $770 per employee per month, and some enterprise quotes go higher than that. Papaya tends to push you toward an actual sales conversation rather than a self-serve checkout, and contracts often run 2 years, though there's usually a 90-day rolling termination clause built in for flexibility. Where Papaya actually gets cheaper than Deel is on payroll for companies that already have their own entities. Their Payroll Plus product starts around $25 per employee per month, with volume discounts at scale, which undercuts Deel's equivalent product once you're running real headcount. Honestly, neither sticker price is the full story. Both companies charge extra for things like salary deposits, currency conversion, and country-specific statutory contributions, and those can add anywhere from 20 to 45% on top of the base fee depending on where you're hiring. So get a real quote for your specific countries before you commit to either one. Treat anything I'm telling you right now as a starting point, not a final number, because pricing in this space changes constantly. Next, let's talk about country coverage, because this one surprises people. On raw numbers, Papaya edges out Deel, covering 160-plus countries against Deel's 150-plus. In real life, this barely matters unless you're hiring somewhere genuinely obscure. Both platforms have you covered everywhere that shows up on the vast majority of hiring plans, places like Germany, Brazil, India, the UK, Singapore, Australia. The real question isn't how many countries each one covers. It's how they cover them, and this is where the two companies actually diverge. Deel runs on a mix of owned legal entities and partner relationships, leaning toward direct ownership in its core markets, with partners filling in the gaps in roughly 40% of the countries it operates in. Papaya runs the opposite ratio. They own entities directly, something they call Papaya Direct, in around 40 countries, and everywhere else they work through a network of vetted local partners who act as the actual legal employer. Papaya's own leadership has argued this partner-heavy approach is actually a feature, not a weakness. Local specialists who've operated in a market for years often understand the regulatory nuance better than a centralized team trying to manage compliance from a head office somewhere else. And honestly, there's a real case for that, especially in complicated markets like Brazil, Nigeria, or Indonesia, where local expertise speeds things up. The trade-off is consistency. When a question comes up in a country where Papaya is using a partner, there's an extra step in the chain before you get an answer, because the platform team has to loop in that local partner. With Deel leaning more on direct ownership in its core markets, that chain tends to be shorter. Multiple reviewers point out this shows up most in routine, everyday support interactions rather than in actual compliance outcomes. If your legal team needs total certainty on exactly who the employer of record is in every single country, that's worth asking directly in a sales call with either company, because neither one publishes a full country-by-country breakdown of owned versus partner entities. Now let's get into compliance support specifically. Both platforms are genuinely built to keep you out of legal trouble. Deel runs a sizable in-house, legal and compliance team tracking employment law across its full country list, paired with its own payroll execution in markets where it offers both EOR and payroll directly. That combination tends to produce a more uniform compliance experience across markets, which matters a lot if you're a smaller team without dedicated in-house HR or legal counsel. Papaya also keeps its own legal team and layers AI-assisted tools on top of payroll to flag compliance issues, and they apply a pretty rigorous vetting process, somewhere around 60 evaluation criteria, before letting a new local partner into their network. Where Papaya really pulls ahead is workforce-level compliance visibility. Because the platform was built around payroll intelligence from day one, it gives finance and HR leaders real-time dashboards showing tax liability exposure, statutory contribution forecasting, and cost modeling across every market at once. So if your biggest worry is getting individual hires set up correctly with minimal hassle, Deel's more centralized approach tends to feel simpler. If you're managing compliance across a dozen-plus countries and need your finance team to have one single source of truth, Papaya's analytics layer starts earning that higher price tag. Let's talk platform experience and the actual technology, because this is genuinely Papaya's strongest card. Papaya was built from day one as a payments and payroll infrastructure company, not an HR tool that bolted on payroll later. They hold their own payment processing licenses in multiple countries and run payments through their own rails instead of handing funds off to a third-party bank. In practice, that means faster settlement and currency markups that run noticeably below the 1.5% to 3% that third-party processors usually charge. If you're running payroll across 10 or more currencies every month, those savings add up fast, and their dashboards are built so a CFO can actually use them, not just a data analyst. Deel leans the other direction, prioritizing ease of use and breadth over deep financial analytics. It bundles EOR, contractor management, payroll, HRIS, and a growing set of HR tools like benefits, equipment management, and immigration support into one fairly intuitive interface, with something like 100+ integrations into the HR and finance tools you might already use. For a founder or an ops lead who isn't a payroll specialist and just needs to get someone hired and paid correctly without a steep learning curve, Deel is generally the easier on-ramp. Reviewers consistently rate it highly for usability, and it's sitting around 4.9 out of 5 across thousands of Capterra reviews, which is among the strongest satisfaction scores in this entire category. Papaya's depth comes with a real learning curve attached. It's built for teams that already think about payroll as a finance function and want granular control, not for someone making their very first international hire without much HR infrastructure behind them yet. Now, support and onboarding speed. Deel is widely considered the faster platform to actually get moving on. Self-serve onboarding for a standard EOR hire typically takes around 7 to 10 days, which matters a lot if you've got a candidate ready to start and you don't want to lose them to a slower competitor's paperwork. As for ongoing support, the pattern across review sites is fairly consistent for both. Deel generally scores well on responsiveness, though some users note that high-touch, dedicated account management is mostly reserved for their enterprise tier. Papaya tends to get strong marks for account manager quality during the sales and implementation phase, But several reviewers mention that first-line response times slow down once you're a live customer instead of a new deal in the pipeline. Neither pattern should disqualify either company, but both are worth asking about directly before you sign anything. So let's bring this home. Who should actually pick which one? Deel makes the most sense if you're a founder or an operator at a growing company who needs to hire quickly in a handful of new markets. You don't have a dedicated HR or payroll team yet, and you want something intuitive enough to use without training. It's also the stronger pick if you're managing a mix of contractors and EOR employees, since the contractor pricing is genuinely competitive, and that free HRIS tier gives you room to grow into. Papaya is built for a different stage entirely. If you've got 50 or more international employees, a finance team actively involved in choosing vendors, and payroll spread across 10 or more countries and currencies, Papaya's analytics and payments infrastructure will likely pay for themselves through reduced currency conversion costs and fewer manual reconciliation headaches alone. It's also the stronger choice if you already have legal entities in some countries and want one platform to unify EOR and owned entity payroll into a single financial view. There isn't a universally better platform here, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. Deel wins on speed, ease of use, and accessibility for smaller, faster-moving teams. Papaya wins on financial depth, payment infrastructure, and the kind of consolidated reporting a CFO running complex global operations actually needs. If you're trying to make your first few international hires without a steep learning curve or a long sales process, Deel is where I'd start, and I've got the link down in the description if you want to check it out. If you're already managing payroll across a dozen countries, and your finance team is asking questions your current tools can't answer, it's worth getting a Papaya quote alongside whatever else you're looking at. Either way, run the actual numbers for your specific countries and headcount before you sign anything. Published pricing is a starting point, not a final invoice, and the right answer depends entirely on where your company is right now, not on which one of these has the better marketing team. If this was useful, drop a comment with which one you're leaning toward, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, you can check out Deel and book a demo from the link in description.